Hey there, and welcome to my poetry and literature channel. I am so glad to see you. Today we'll be reading some original poetry from my first published collection of poetry that I published earlier this year. It's titled Swimming, and it's a collection of poems that I've written over the last several years. Some of you may know this, and some of you may not, but for the last 2 years I actually lived in Alaska. And while it is probably the most beautiful place I'll ever live, it came with its own set of challenges, especially in the winter. So a lot of the writing that I did about the state of Alaska has to deal with the struggle reconciling the intense, incredible beauty of the state with the harshness of the winter. Something else I noticed about locations in Alaska is that they have an incredible sense of place. Two of my favorite cities are Seward and Homer, and they're seaside towns. We have lots of seaside towns in the lower 48. I've lived in several of them, visited them, and something I really find interesting is the seaside towns in Alaska you absolutely cannot replicate, because even though they've got like fun colored buildings and like cute little tchotchke shops and ice cream shops, when you're in Seward or when you're in Homer, you turn around and you see the most incredible mountains you've ever seen. And you just can't replicate that in the lower 48. So I was struck by the uniqueness of the places in Alaska and how strongly they had a sense of place. And I wanted to capture it in a few of the writings that I did. So we're going to start with one of my favorite locations in Alaska, Seward. If you're from Alaska, you might laugh at me, but it was a great reprieve from Anchorage. And in Seward, there's this restaurant called Zudy's. Zudy's, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, was an old train station. It's a really sweet place. They've got like salad, soup, sandwiches, lots of beer. Very Alaskan. Sometimes I would go and it would be super rambunctious, and other times, like the instance in this poem, it was very quiet. So without further ado, here is Zudy's. As a treat, I buy myself my favorite cookie with lunch. The manager gives me 2. I offer one to a nearby couple, but it's oatmeal raisin, so they nicely refuse. Outside, in tepid rain, Zudy's first proposal proposes by the sea. All 18 of us celebrate. The manager gives them cake. I'd want cake too, if it were me. A road-tripping woman sips a beer in a bathrobe and leaves behind a trail of crumbs. Families with married children also decline the spare cookie when I offer it to them. I've been here many times, always with the same sandwich and wallflowering in the same place. But something draws me back, be food or art or kindness. I keep finding joy in this space. Some of you may come at me for my favorite cookie being oatmeal raisin. I really don't care. It is elite. Only people with taste get it. The next poem I wrote about my second favorite place in Alaska, which is Homer. I went there once and camped on the beach with my friend, and her family was staying in a camper across the street. So one day we were over just sitting in between the campers, and her mom looked at me and challenged me to write a limerick about Homer. And that is exactly what I did. So here is Homer AK. The air in Homer smells like fish, like gas, like sand, like bull kelp squished. But it has no salt, the spit's only fault, as if God forgot to finish. The next poem is called Termination Dust, and for those of you unfamiliar with the phrase termination dust or termination snow, it is the first snow on the mountains that indicates the end of summer. I will go ahead and read it for you guys. Termination Dust. 1. Snow, she speaks, a warning foreseen, the rise of the white on the grave of the green. 2. Someone sprinkled sugar on the mountain tops. Someone blew out a vacuum on the tallest peaks. Clouds of dandelion seeds found rest on jagged stone, but they do not know the forces they've unleashed. The last poem I'll be sharing with you guys is actually one of my favorites I've ever written, just because I experimented with structure and it took me a long time to actually get it right. And I'll show you the structure. I don't know how well it will show up on the camera, but I have kind of like a spine in the middle. I don't know if there's like a literary term for this. Spine's just the word I'm using. So let me know if there's an actual term. But what I will do is I will read this poem first, and then I will read this poem. And I would like to hear what you guys think about this kind of structure, if you've tried it, or if you have another type of structure that you really like experimenting with your poetry. This is Alaska. Alaska is a lush wonder, and I stare starry-eyed when the turmeric sun stains the mountains glittery gold. I know the greens and fuchsias and soft rains and burnt autumns cannot be caught. Like a wild animal, I cannot photograph. I can only embrace each moment like a breath. I breathe it in and let it go. Alaska is an isolated melancholy, and I struggle grasping hope when the autumn breeze freezes, days turn to tar. I know my feet are not rooted here. I am no dying tree in this vintage backwoods. I am a wild animal. I will not be caged here. I'll claw my way out, gasp my way home. Let me go. I think this poem perfectly encapsulates the struggle of how beautiful the state is and also how harsh the winter is if you're not prepared for it. Alaska is so beautiful. I believe everyone should go at least once in their life. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great day. I'll see you later.